Monopoly Deal is only $5. That's right, what a freaking bargain. Play this OG Monopoly spinoff for less than a Big Mac. Insane value, I think. And it's so easy to play, teach, and super Monopoly themed and actually quite popular. I've been constantly hearing this game brought up in many non-board gamer circles, so after swearing this off many years ago, I decided to take another look. Monopoly Deal is a short 15-minute card game about building up properties, with plenty of take that attacking each other. It has tons of Monopoly-isms with all the familiar properties and the cash, and I thought it was just a family game, but again, it has had a lot of popularity amongst adults I know. By the way, this is the newest version of Monopoly Deal that you can buy at any local Target store or online. Remember, it's $5. There's now some slight rule changes to one card, but really the biggest difference between all the versions is that the backs are different, so nothing substantial. And this is the number of plays I did for this 2 to 5 player games, as we now get into the how to play. Goal is to get 3 completed property sets together, then the game immediately ends. To do that, you'll just play cards from your hand. Start of turn, you draw 2 cards. Then you can play up to 3 cards down of 3 different types. 1, cards as money to put in your stash. 2, properties that are your win con. 3, actions that can do all sorts of things, like charging rent based off your properties, you look at how many of that property you currently have, or stealing properties from someone else. When you steal money from others, either through renting or another card, they pay from their bank or properties. No change given. And if their bank is empty, the stuff must come from their properties. And that's about it. There's houses and hotels that can be placed on complete sets, and wild properties that can help complete sets. Pros! Monopoly Deal is so darn accessible. This is one of the easiest pick up, learn, and play games I've ever seen. The cards are all self-explanatory, and since they're colors, it's not really confusing what board states are like. Oh, and the rulebook is clear. Just put the object of the game smack in the middle. Come on, other rulebooks, why don't you do this? Oh, and it has a setup area that's really easy to follow. Not all games do as good of a job as this, you'd be surprised. This is helped by great player aids, so you don't really have to explain the full game as the teacher, especially because pretty much everyone knows how Monopoly works. Even if they haven't played Monopoly, they'll know that sets go together to complete. So get complete sets. That's Monopoly Deal as well. That is good. Like, do you remember the how to play I just made? You can pretty much explain the game in 20 seconds, 30 seconds? Oh, real quick, you only get 4 of these player references, which is kind of weird, but I guess they wanted a 106 card deck. Yes, I counted myself because I thought I was going crazy. Mono Deal is also blisteringly fast to set up, and almost as importantly, reset a game of this. Just combine all the cards together, shuffle, deal out 5 to everyone, pick a starting player, you're ready to go. It's so fast. This gets us right into gameplay pros and how intuitive this game is coming right from Monopoly. They definitely made this a Monopoly themed game. It really shows. You can build houses and hotels on complete sets, charge people rent as things get bigger, satisfying just like the original to scale up. Even something like pass and go to draw 2 cards or it's your birthday to collect cash from everyone are all familiar beats. Oh, like if we add up how properties work, how about going into this intuitive combo of dropping Boardwalk, then putting a house on top, then charging rent on that? That's 3 actions, so 1 turn to get 11 million from everyone else. Very intuitive and a winning play. There's something just magical in how you can show people that they need to make sets, and then they never ask how many cards there are of each color, because it's Monopoly. Blue has 2, red has 3, railroad has 4. No one asks why, that's just how it is. This makes the dual use properties so intuitive to understand their value and hence when to play them. The next gameplay pro is a system of having some cards be dual use. They can either be their action or be their money value. This opens up some simple card management as you're thinking of whether to play it as money to protect yourself, protect your properties, or is it better as the attacking card to maybe fulfill the prereqs for that, or wait until your opponents are vulnerable. And money isn't always completely brain dead to drop because when you have to pay out, you never give change. So putting that $10 bill as cash when you don't have stuff to protect it isn't always a good idea. So you gotta balance when's the right time to drop it and how likely others are to take it. Sometimes just drop the $1 and $2 until later, then you get your 10 out and your $10 is protecting your quantity of cards, as if you ever get hit with a big attack, you can just give out 1 to 2 cards instead of your whole board. Lastly, there's also merit to emptying your hand because you get to draw 5 cards at the start of your next turn. But it's also really risky because if you empty your hand, you immediately leave yourself open to getting attacked. So that's where the mind games can come in. Yeah, because the game is so focused on attacking others and defending yourself, a lot of your card drops are based off of what you think others are doing. For example, if you think someone else is trying to complete the red set very intentionally, well, maybe you don't want to drop your Indiana to the board because that's probably gonna get stolen. But then maybe you do that, you drop your Indiana to bait out their steal so you can complete a set you're trying to do, like complete your greens. There's a big dynamic between Deal Breaker and Just Say No, as Deal Breaker takes completed sets, which is insane, but Just Say No is the only denial. So as a Deal Breaker holder, you want to use it on someone that can't negate it. It's a very simple, intuitive, take that counterplay. Plus you can always just say no, just say no to surprise people. Yep, that just gets us right into how this game has so much player interaction for how short and simple it is. If you look over here, the discard, It's actually only action cards in this game because you're constantly playing action cards on one another. There's all these dopamine hits as you play these attacks on each other, and then property circles around the board. And then it circles back. Everyone's just eyeing each other all the time to see what they can get to complete their own sets. Actually, yeah, property holding only goes up in this game. Properties never get discarded, meaning that this game runs really true to time. It's almost always 15 minutes. There's also only one type of defense card, but many attack cards to keep the action going. The last pro is that Mono Deal has some good replayability because there's just a great variety of cards. The amount of plays you can do from combining rent drops at different times of your property completion, maybe trying to get a house next game, or using attack actions like Force Deal differently, or even playing action cards as money sometimes. There's so much variance in the wackiness, so then you're curious what wackiness will come up next game. But then that gets us to the ugly parts of this with the cons. Component cons time, and there's not really much artwork in this game, besides some actions. But then again, OG Monopoly didn't have artwork on properties. It can leave this game looking a bit generic and not so much like you're building actual properties despite all the bright colors. Now for gameplay cons, and man, is there some crazy card imbalance here. I mean, drawing a $1 versus a $2 versus a $5 versus a $10 kind of explains itself. Park Place Boardwalk line is the same cost to play as any other property. It's just free from your hand. Like, look at the potential rent payoff from this card, and you only need 2 as opposed to 3 of them to be a complete set to win the game. Oh, speaking of that, Railroad Line to need 4 for a set sucks super hard, and I'm not sure why this wasn't given an ability. Woe is you if you draw these. Like, look at its rent scaling. It's so awful. Why didn't they make this higher? I guess they wanted to keep it thematic. Some cards you love to draw are deal breaker to literally lift someone's complete set regardless of value. And Just Say No is the only counterplay to deal breaker. So either you have this card or you don't. Very black and white in dealing with strong cards. Deal breaker maybe should have involved some cost or be less strong, like taking 1 property from a completed set would be plenty strong, or 1 property from 2 completed sets. Deal breaker can just win you the game. I will point out that it looks like Deal breaker plus Just Say No combo in hand got slightly nerfed in this refresh set, because dropping Just Say No on your turn counts as an action. Oh, also Just Say No, the use case of it got clarified more in this new set. But Deal breaker is still an insane card. An insanely swingy play is to force deal to give them one of your properties, then you complete one of your sets from them, and then you deal breaker that complete set. So now you have 2 complete sets and your opponent has nothing? That's disgusting. Oh, also debt collector to just grab $5 from someone is way too good early to mid game. It's not surprising you can get more than $5 in value. Look at how much you have to do to get rent. You have the card, and then you need the other cards that match the rent color. Like, sure, the rent upside is theoretically higher for you the more players there are, or you could just drop debt collector. Easy peasy, 1 person always gets targeted for $5, which is a rough amount to pay early. Debt collector always will plus to itself a minimum from its cash costs, and so you just auto play it. Then the houses and hotels that go on complete sets are actually kind of weird because they're ugly win more cards that do too little too late often. They take a valuable action to place in the stage where you're already doing well, and usually you just want to charge rent or protect your assets. Then hotels require a house. Like, that's so much of an ask to get a house, then drop another card hotel on top of it. And often you'll have a hotel in your hand without a house. Often the hotels will just get converted straight into cash. Monopoly Deal is not like Monopoly in that here you're building up assets, and over a long period of time you're gonna have a return on your investments. Rather here it's just super fast cards flying around, so actually houses and hotels are a noob trap. They're an unintuitive punishing noob trap in that you think you might be doing the right thing and getting property, building things, right? That sounds like Monopoly. But actually the payoff's usually not that good, and you're putting a giant target on yourself in multiplayer to just get stolen from because Deal Breaker exists, whereas nothing like Deal Breaker exists in Monopoly. There's no stealing properties in Monopoly. And hilariously, to keep it thematic, they don't let you place houses or hotels on the utility set, which further limits the house hotel use. But again, thematic. So the houses and definitely the hotels are here for this thematic boardwalk hotel play, for the bananas hype moment, but maybe they should have been free placements to make this more likely and then cost some cash, kind of like normal Monopoly. This gets us back to rent. It being a card you draw is actually not the best idea because you're relying on so much randomness onto a key thematic part of Monopoly. Like, the idea of Monopoly is to have properties and charge rent for them. But rather what ends up happening is that the rent action is kind of all over the place here. There's 2 types of each color pair with 3 wilds that can only work on 1 target. And in a deck of 106 cards, there's just variance on rent usually being, oh, I get a great rent with some colors. The rent is too damn high, so it's worth dropping the card. Maybe you 2x it for a bananas play. Or, oh, it's far worse than Debt Collector, especially with some low tier properties, and in low player counts, it's just not worth playing as an entire action. You can end games without rent cards being dropped, and it's all just stealing properties otherwise. It's not that randomness is bad in games, it's just that it has to be handled well, and there's poor randomness handling here. Your turns are pretty much 100% victim to what you draw off the top of the deck, because you have to drop a card, to do any action in this game, and the cards are all super varied in strength. If you have a bad hand and your opponent has a good hand, well, you're pretty much just SOL. Like, it's possible to have all dead actions and to just be dropping money on your turn. That's it. It's not very engaging gameplay, but then again, the game is so fast. This can hit harder though, because Monopoly Deal has some downward spiraling of player experience, where if you get hit for money and you don't have much of a bank, you have to hand over property. You can easily get hit for all your worth and have nothing in front of you, few cards in hand, and you're effectively eliminated from ever winning. But again, not a big deal because this game is so short. Now for player count, 2 players is just not very good here. That's because if you're playing head to head, there's no group dynamic to balance out someone that just ekes ahead off a good draw. And thus it really is whoever draws a better hand just wins, as you only have one target. There's also just a massive first player advantage because getting to drop properties earlier is just better. You do want more players because you have more options to steal from for more interesting play and some capacity for politics. However, at a lot of players, like let's say 5 players, the game also suffers. So yes, you technically have more targets to hit, which is more interesting, and then more people hitting you, so there's more mind games with all the attacking cards and defending cards, like Just Say No. But in such a swingy game, having more players just makes it even more swingy. Like imagine getting hit by 2 to 3 rent cards in a row, or it's your birthday cards, and you just have to pay out before it gets back to your turn. You can kind of sometimes just say bye-bye to your assets because other players just attack too much. Can't really do anything about that. Like look at a central renting mechanic attacking every player. So sometimes these cards are just straight busted at 5 players. But then 2 players, sometimes these aren't very good. That's just what the game is. So Monopoly Deal actually shines at 3 players, which it was actually labeled as in this exclusive pocket version that has alternate building names. Not sure what the heck happened, but I'm just gonna do a wild guess and say that 4 to 5 players was hammered onto Monopoly Deal to just increase sales by having more players be able to play. The last gameplay con is progression, which is kind of wonky, but again, it's a short game. So let's look at your money. Your money just kind of sits there late game. Some players will have so much money saved up that asking them for rent in most cases doesn't really do anything because they just pay some of their money here. So late game, you just kind of stop worrying about the bank, and it's just a mad rush to just draw more cards to try to get the final properties, to complete this, or to steal from someone else's properties, like a sly deal. That made us ask, oh, what if having a set goal like $1 million was a win condition? So people were incentivized to hoard money. And that's another game, Monopoly Millionaire Deal. We haven't played it, but upon some research, getting money is the only win condition. And you can't play properties as money, I believe, or they don't count towards money. Some are saying this works better as a 2-player game, but I'd imagine that you're probably playing Monopoly Deal in a group. A possible way to tweak the progression so money matters more is that renting being stronger the more completed sets you have, or the easier way is to just buy another set of Monopoly Deal because it's $5. Then you can just take whatever cards you want here that you think will make the game faster for you, like getting more rent cards or taking out the $10 bills. And then while you're at it, you could just tweak the decks entirely. Like you could just remove railroads from the game. I've actually read online that people like to take out wild properties, but yeah, let's just get into scoring. Now it's time for a recommender score on Monopoly Deal, where we try to critically evaluate the aforementioned pros and cons with the caveat of whether or not this is even a good idea in the first place. And this is a simple take that card game based off parts of Monopoly in 15 minutes for 2 to 5 players. And so this is gonna get a 6 out of 10. It is above average. So there is no trading in this game, so it'll never be quite like the longer Monopoly where properties trade and meaningfully scale up. I like what someone on Reddit said about Monopoly Deal, where he said it's more like a city builder where you're putting down money as your walls and you're trying to complete your city faster than others, and you go out and attack other people's cities. But the Monopoly theme is still here despite it hurting some card design and balance. But this game doesn't really care about those cons anyways. It's been around for more than 15 years and still kicking. Man, people like the Monopoly IP a lot more than I expected, or maybe a lot more than they expected, because people are just willing to hop into this no problemo. IP advantage is real. Mono Deal is unbalanced swinging mayhem. There's no denying that. The high swings and property value drops gets disrupted by high swings and asset swiping. There's doubling rent, stealing things, stealing complete things, global attacks. But this also fulfills this role of giving you constant dopamine hits of getting your money, stealing other people's stuff. You're cutthroat, but feelings don't get too hurt because the stakes are so low. There's counterplay with filling your bank in a certain way. There are some renting combos you can do. There's really something to be said about how this game can evoke friendly competition so easily. Start the game, look at your hand, draw 2 cards, play down 3 cards, end your turn. That's it. There are a lot of strategies to experiment with for newbies, like not playing early until you're ready to secure your assets, or loading up on money early, or holding properties until you have 2 of each set, or just trying to hold on to 2 complete sets, or trying to play politics so you can gang up on whoever's winning. But no matter what, you're still a victim to card draw mattering so much, and then being blasted by other people's dropping back-to-back mid to high tier rent cards. But yeah, you're not playing this to consistently win. If you play this as a serious competitive game, be warned that the skill ceiling is rather low. You'll get your group pretty far to just know that there's 2 deal breakers and 3 just say no's in the entire 106 card deck. Now yes, here at Shelfside we cover a lot of big, heavy games, but we acknowledge that there's charm in low stakes, low effort, low time interactive games where you just hang out with your cherished ones and dropping cards on each other while screeching in playful frustration. It's truly just grab and go. Grab it off the shelf, $5, you can play it. And even if you lose a couple cards or they get destroyed, it doesn't really matter that much. This game still works. Monopoly Deal reminds me of some childhood games. They had high variance randomness with some agency, and then us as kids would love it because you could feel like you could play against adults and have a fair chance of winning. Things like Uno, Monopoly, or Sequence come to mind. Yeah, these aren't particularly deep multiplayer experiences. You don't play these for balance. They're sometimes played with your own janky house rules. If your hand or roll sucks, you just don't have a good turn. But they get people together playing games. Basically, if you play with a lot of non-board gamers and want something super fast and don't mind wild randomness, you should at least try this. $5 is an incredible deal. Haha, get it? Monopoly Deal. It's a good deal. Heck, just buy 2 copies and combine cards together. I mean, no one will really know the difference if you take out some cards you don't like and then add in the cards, more of the cards you do like. But anyways, you could buy this game off the shelf, you could learn it, you could play it, and finish it in probably less time than it takes to set up a game of Catan. That's really something for this one, huh? My personal score for Monopoly Deal is gonna be a 4 out of 10. I have a below average time with it. Okay, this was almost a 3 out of 10, but the more I thought about this game and playing it recently, I was thinking, I don't actively dislike it. It's just not that fun. I mean, it's just a way to play cards with friends that goes so fast I don't really care too much. It's not that big of a deal. So now the true backstory behind this review, I wanted to give this game a chance after having terrible experiences with it in college of people taking it way too seriously. Yes, that is me over there many years ago. And I kid you not, I was taught that, if you have a complete set, it's actually immune to attack cards. Because look at that, Force Deal and Slide Deal. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, that makes sense. You want to protect your things by completing them. And then they dropped the deal breaker on me and said, oh no, actually deal breakers are exceptions to the rule. Oh, I win again. That's all playing for today. I'm like, what? So yeah, Monopoly Deal is the same game from then, but now I'm a lot more chill and measured about playing card games. Because before, I would constantly think for hours about how to win in games, and Monopoly Deal was another way for me to test my skills, but I kept wondering, how does one actually get good at this game? How does one actually say they're good at Monopoly Deal? So now 7 years later, having played way more board games and card games, and I'm looking at this more clearly, and I'm thinking, yeah, I get it. This is for people that don't really want to play bigger games all the time, or maybe don't play bigger games at all. I understand. Like I played this at a buddy's house after a long day of working on the Dune War Game review, and Monopoly Deal felt kind of good to blow off steam with friends. But then again, we could have gone on a walk and had a better time, or just sat around in a circle and talked and had a better time. But it is still kind of fine to play cards and chat while you're dropping cards. It kind of reminded me of playing War. You know, the game where you flip over cards from a deck of playing cards split in 2. There's 0 agency because higher value just wins, but it's fun to play cards. So yeah, right now I'm just gonna enjoy the act of moving around cards, shuffling cards, playing cards, just chatting with my friends as we play the game. Some hands will be good, some hands will be bad. Hopefully everyone gets a chance to win this game as we sit down to play it multiple times. There will be some kind of empty trash talk as properties change hands, and yeah, that's the game. There's not really a big moment for me to look forward to. There's not really any pivotal thing that's blowing my mind, but it's social lubricant the game. It does its thing. It's just me playing and going like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, I'm playing this. These are things that are happening. They're just happening. Some more analysis on player count. 2 players is so boring as the board state is too simple for me to keep track of, and so I don't really care who wins, but then I'm disjointed because usually when I play 1v1 card games, I'm more competitive thinking. 4 or 5 players is actually worse, as you end your turn and praying you don't get blasted by endless attack cards. It also tends to run longer in game time, so I check out more. But usually by the time I'm begging for 4 to 5 players to just end, like, make it stop, actually the game just ends. The game is just so fast. Yeah, I just can't lower my score before 4, because with me not taking that seriously anymore, it's totally okay with the right crowd, but yeah, I'd really want to play 3 players. Like if I were to design this game, I would make rent an ability for your asymmetrical Monopoly piece starting powers, let cards on the board have passive abilities, eventually progress to do more than 3 actions a turn. Deal breaker should have an insane cost to play. But yeah, that's not this game, and I'm sure I'll play this game again sometime, just not hosted by me, but why don't we just play Uno instead? To wrap this up, if I were to compare this to TI4, TI4 is like this finely tuned exquisite piece of art. And then Monopoly Deal is like some reality TV show that's trashy, like Love Island. But sometimes it's just on and everyone's just watching it. And you're like, yeah, I guess this is kind of fun to partake in a little bit. And sometimes reality TV is what you end up doing with friends. And Godfather is something that you can't play all the time. Hence why TI4 doesn't get played that much. Monopoly Deal is actually like a cockroach that's growing on me. I don't know what it is. Like, I wanted it to die. I wanted it to be gone from my life. But now, kind of okay. I've kind of learned to make my peace with it. I just kind of exist with this. I'll be seeing this 4 out of 10, okay? That was the review on Monopoly Deal. This review has been a long time coming. Finally got it out for $5. Yeah, $5 game. Holy cow. The advantage of having Monopoly as an IP, Hasbro Gaming. Yeah. Anyways, as always, thank you to our patrons and people on Coffee for making this video possible. We got all you guys over here. If you'd like to donate, please check out the links below. Let me know if you want me to cover more interesting mainstream games like this. I guess it's not the most interesting, but it's popular. Also, thank you to our man that's a cardboard over there, somewhere on screen. That is it. A lot of videos coming, guys. Yeah, just thought I'd eventually get to this one, and I had some time to do it. Thinking about this one for a while. Monopoly Deal. Let me know if you think the game is up your alley. I'm curious to see if your family enjoys it, if like maybe your clubs, social clubs and everything. Like, comment, subscribe, all that. Bye-bye.